Try this again. Every once in a while things go pear-shaped, and we've got to fix things. Just the way it goes sometimes. Hi everybody, Hank Linderman here. It's Monday, October 5th. It's time to share. This is another view of my backyard. That's my wood pile right there, and my dock is just out of view. Oh, we're getting a phone call. I wonder if I should answer. Hey, Dan.
It's Dan Sobranek.
Dan Sobranek, how are you doing? Well, you've happened to catch me. You believe it or not, you are live on Facebook right now with me.
Oh my gosh! Well, okay. What are you doing? Are you doing some playing or
no? I do a daily podcast on Facebook Live called Getting Angry, and we talk about politics and we talk about various things. Everybody out there, Dan Sobranek is a fantastic singer-songwriter, musician, all-around great guy, and one of the primary folks behind a bluegrass festival that I've gone to many times and performed at a couple of times called Larry Fest.
Absolutely, yeah. We missed you this year. Of course, we didn't have the fest along with everything else going on.
Right, exactly. Well, Dan, I was calling you because we are doing virtual fundraising on the weekends. And sorry, everybody, we've got 21 people listening to us right at this instant, at least. So, Dan, I wanted you to see if you'd be willing to be part of this. I'm sure everyone would enjoy hearing you perform. We had something like 2,000 people on Saturday listen in, and on Sunday we had closing in on that amount. So can I call you later and we'll work this out?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Hank. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan, I will call you later. I'm so glad to hear from you.
All right, Hank. Thanks, and thanks for your good work.
All right. You take care, Dan. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, everybody, that's Dan Sobranek, who's, like I say, a fantastic performer. And his family puts on this thing called Larry Fest that I've gone to several times out in the wilds of Wisconsin, in Lafarge, Wisconsin there. It's about 45 minutes outside of La Crosse. And I had a tremendous time. I hope you all don't mind me taking that phone call. I think that you, Gina McKee, do you know about Larry Fest? Larry Fest is badass. It's wonderful. And Randall Kirsch is here. Everybody, remember, we got to share. We got to share. We had a wonderful weekend. Randall Kirsch sent a new song. And as soon as the thing yesterday ended, I got something from a guy named Chris Folson, and Chris has been on with us. He's an Australian singer-songwriter who's, in fact, if you're part of an evangelical church, you probably perform some of Chris Folson's songs. So he sent a beautiful new song that we'll be showing on Saturday. I also spoke to I don't want to get you all hot and bothered, but I did speak to Timothy Schmidt earlier today, and I think he's going to call in this coming weekend. We'll talk about that. We haven't worked out exactly when, but hopefully he'll be part of things. It was very nice to speak with him. Well, we got so much to talk about. The world continues to be crazy. I don't think I want to talk very, very much about what's going on in the White House because it seems to change all of the time. We don't know exactly what's going on, and I'm not sure we will. The details keep dribbing and drabbing out, and they seem to contradict other things we've been told. So no wonder we're all confused. But what is clear to me is that the amount of care that has been required to keep President Trump from getting very, very sick, if he isn't already very, very sick, imagine the expense, what this would take, and then multiply it out by the million people that have already been infected in the United States. In fact, let's have a quick look at today's numbers. Notice in the USA, we see new deaths, only 332. I say only, which is a bit misleading. Only is a bit misleading because every single death, most of them being unnecessary, is a tragedy. But notice we're going to probably get over to 215,000 deaths. We are easily going to be at 220, possibly 225 by the time the election occurs. Who knows? Look at that, 7.6 million cases. And the expense of just taking care of President Trump is just astonishing. I look at these numbers all the day, and to me, I read them and weep. Anyway, that's that. Well, let's get back over to, sorry about this. We need to do, what am I doing? I'm lost. Pushing the wrong buttons. I didn't bother doing these states. And here's why. Because the numbers were so low that it really just didn't mean anything. So here is from Johns Hopkins. And sorry, I'm just, giving you all whiplash with bouncing all these things around. Oops. I obviously don't know what I'm doing. I have to admonish myself later. Anyway, this is important. These are new confirmed COVID-19 cases by day, by the United States, and by territories. And as you'll see, the comment below, I found this at Naked Capitalism. It says, concerning steady rise in the Midwest. We are seeing infections pick up again. I think Kentucky a few days ago had their #1 largest amount of new cases since this began. And now we're heading into cold and flu season. I've been socially distanced from people for so long, I'm not sure how I started to sort of get a cold. And I'm not sure how that happened. But that just shows to go you. I've been having some conversations lately that I do want to share with you. And one of them is I hear from people who live in areas that are not rural areas. And there's an idea that people who live in rural America are not very intelligent, that they are unsophisticated. The word that gets used is ignorant. Ignorance, a word that gets used a little too freely. In a certain sense, we are all ignorant of something. And so in the, I don't mind saying that I'm ignorant about a lot of things about farming, for example. I have plenty to learn. But to call other people ignorant, sometimes what we're saying is that they want to be ignorant, that they are willfully ignorant. And that is just not the case. I'm surrounded by neighbors most of them are Trump supporters. And if they're in the middle of doing something, they'll drop whatever they're doing to help me. And that's just the way it is. That's how they are. Now, a lot of them might not have gone to college, but they can take an engine apart. They can build a house. They can do all kinds. They can grow food. They can grow their own food. They can slaughter animals. They can feed themselves. They are extremely resilient and extremely connected to the land and connected to their families. So to call them ignorant is not really a mindful statement. So that's one of the things that we run into. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that more later. Maybe I'll do it right now. Let me see. Because I want to talk about Thomas Frank. And let's see, where is his thing? Like I say, I need staff. I need a producer. I need a control room. I'm having to do this all. Let's have another look at the lake. Doesn't that make you feel relaxed? Just that. Wonder if we can make the lake just show up. Anyway, so I'm going to show you a screen which is from an interview with Thomas Frank, and I'll show this to you. It's from Spiked Online, and It's an interview with Thomas Frank that I would actually ask you all to have a look at. I think it's fantastic. It's a fantastic interview, and I really appreciate Thomas Frank. In fact, I've got his book right here. Sorry, I went behind the view. This is his latest book, and it's what the interview with Thomas Frank is about. So the book is called The People Know. It has a different title in England. It's a history of populism and anti-populism in the United States in particular, because populism began as a term. The word was invented in Kansas in 1890 when farmers unified and got up and became a political force, and they invented this term populist. And so this is, like I say, an interview in an English online publication. So Brendan O'Neill, who asked the question in your book, you describe the persistence of anti-populism. We're constantly warned about authoritarian populism, the stupid people, the anti-expertise masses who are presented as a threat to democracy. But the opposite is the case. It's the anti-populists, the people who want to overturn the largest democratic vote in British history, Brexit, or overturn the vote for Trump, who are the threat. Now, I realize by the way, this back to Hank. That's that guy's question. I realize that this is going to be an unpopular thing for me to be discussing, but the guy is making a point. More people voted for Brexit than voted against it. That's why it passed. Now, in the case of the United States, because of the Electoral College, more people voted for Hillary Clinton, but the game is the Electoral College. That's the game. If you want to play, you got to play that game. More on that a little bit later. Contemporary anti-populists would not see themselves as being like the capitalists of the 1890s or the 1930s or the Jim Crow racists of the 1950s, yet they have something very important in common. They're from the ruling class, and they're attempting to defend their authority against the revolt of the lower orders. Though you recognize that anti-populism has changed over time, you draw an explicit line between the reaction in the 1890s and that of the 2020s. Now, by the way, Thomas Frank will answer here. You'll get the point. Thomas Frank says, yes, with some caveats. So obviously he disagreed with a little bit of the question. I don't think Trump is a populist. I think he's a demagogue and a fraud. America has a tradition of demagogues and frauds. And various politicians, Thomas Frank goes on to say, various politicians appear to play that they are populists. Now, I want to explain to you what Thomas Frank sees populism as. He sees it as social and political change from the grassroots up, from the ground up. So when he says that Ronald Reagan was performing as a populist, when he says Reagan was pretending to be a populist, I understand what he's saying. Reagan certainly was more about helping corporations take down unions and that sort of thing. So the people who despise and denounce populism represent a ruling class, a caste that has been created and it's defined by its members and how well educated they are and how well off they are. For them, America is a wonderland and the rest of us are left behind. Increasingly, they are identified with the Democrats. In fact, he says not just increasingly, it's kind of done. The Democratic Party is the party where you have managerial, white-collar, professional class elites. And he points out that we have a lot of reason to distrust elites. Look how much elites have been screwing up. And he includes George Bush in the same thing. So experts have been screwing things up a lot lately. You could write a whole book on elite failure. It's in your face. It happens all the time, yet they never acknowledge it. Think of the Iraq War and the subprime bubble. Think of the collapse of Wall Street. It was the smartest people in the room that did that. Now, let's also be clear. The handling of the coronavirus, this interview appears to have gone on before the coronavirus. But the handling of the coronavirus is largely, as we've heard from Dr. Gregg and from John Winkelman, is a political failure. We weren't willing to take this on without being sure that our corporations could make a profit. We didn't do very well at all. In fact, we did about the worst in the world. We have only 4% of the population of the world. We have over 20% of the cases. And we're a wealthy nation. We could afford to do what Germany did. If we had done what Germany did, 70% of the people that have died might still be alive. If we had done what South Korea did, we would have something like 99% of the people who passed away might still be alive. That's pretty serious. And now look what has happened. The president is sick with this disease, and he's, as he said, he's going to school and learning a lot about the disease. I certainly hope he doesn't pay the ultimate test for it, but you know that someone in the group of people that was there at that gathering for Amy Coney Barrett, to get her presented and get her ready to be shoved into the Supreme Court, many, many people have gotten sick. That was a super spreader event, and that could disrupt the election. It might possibly disrupt her rush to being seated on the Supreme Court. So anyway, we have done a poor job here in the United States with dealing with the coronavirus, and it's mostly political. We could have dealt with the medical problems much, much better. I mean, can you think of any other crisis that we would have said, we're going to war in Iraq, but I'm going to turn this over to the governors and let them handle it. This was a national problem that should have been dealt with at the national level. Sorry, I've been all over the place there. But what I want you to understand is this. America must go forward in a way that acknowledges rural and working Americans. It's why I'm always on about the contract for rural and working America, and I'll be pushing that around for probably the rest of my life. Here's some of the pieces of it. But we make a massive mistake. We make a massive mistake if we decide that we are not going to go forward and do the right thing in rural America. I say that Democrats, if you win the presidency, and I'm a Democrat, I'm running as a Democrat, I'm hoping to win this time, but I say that if Democrats take the presidency, if they take the Senate, if they extend their lead in the House, everything goes swimmingly. They have 2 years to get it together and show rural and working America they care even just a little bit about them. And these policies that I'm talking about, things like rural broadband, these are things that should be already in place. In fact, we've talked about this. If we divide the country into 4 equal groups population-wise, 25% of the country, 25%, 25%, right, 4 groups. And one is clearly rural, and the next one is sub-rural, and the next one's suburban, and the final one is urban. When you compare that to their representation in the Senate, the rural group has something like 36 or 37% of the senators. That's a lot of power concentrated in rural America. You would think that we would already have rural broadband. You would think we'd already have rural hospitals staying open instead of them being closed. You would think working people would be earning a decent living in rural America. You would think we would be supporting small subsistence and family farms, but we are not. That is because Republicans took the money from large corporations, large corporate donors. Democrats did this too. But at least in the 2nd District, Mitch McConnell and the guy I'm running against, Brett Guthrie, they took money from large corporate contributors and used that vote that they have, in the one in the House and one in the Senate. A vote's a vote. They use that to support their contributors instead of doing the right thing for the people. And they do make promises that are social promises. They paint themselves as pro-life and that they won't take your guns and so on and so on. But those kinds of statements don't cost a single thing. They just don't cost anything. So the hard work of making sure we got enough schools, making sure we have broadband, making sure that families with addicts are getting supported, that we've got enough rehab for people who have become addicted. And by the way, a lot of that addiction was prescribed by contributors to Brett Guthrie and to Mitch McConnell. I've heard that story multiple times. Well, all right. I've been ranting quite a bit about this. I'm going to rant a little bit further about something else, which is the main story from today. Let's see if we can get a look at it. We're going to go here. Oops. Here we go. Then I'll go up here. Here's the headline. Would you leave the country if Trump is reelected? And that's a discussion that I have certainly been hearing for quite some time. There we go. The buttons are just out of control. Someday, one of these days, I'm going to show you again what it is around here, what the deal is, all the stuff I'm dealing with. Anyway, this story is in the New York Times, and it goes in some detail talking about, is it time, is it time to leave the United States? Is this what people who are saying that if President Trump is reelected, and if they've got the ability to leave the United States and go someplace else? And the story goes into quite a bit of detail about various people. Now, this person goes so far to say, this kind of thing has been said for quite a while. Oh my goodness, I'm getting another call. McLean Lessenberry. She's from McLean. I'm live on Facebook, and I'm going to have to call you later.
Oh, okay, great.
And you're live on Facebook too. Would you like to say hello to everybody that's watching?
Hello, vote Hank Linderman.
McLean is a young organizer in Barron County, and she's one of the futures of the Democratic Party here in Kentucky. And I'm so glad to hear from you. Can I call you a little bit later?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
She is someone that we really want to have on the interview. I decided, what the heck? If people are calling me, I should just answer the phone. This should give you an idea of what life is like as a candidate. You're on the phone just constantly. Anyway, back to the idea of, if President Trump is able to win again, and especially if there are irregularities, I don't believe it's possible, and I do believe that we as Democrats still need to do what we need to do. We've got to go out and vote. And by the way, I'm jumping all over the place. I just had a funny feeling like I'm turning into a liberal Rush Limbaugh. It's a little alarming. I don't want to be a liberal Rush Limbaugh. But anyway, Kentuckians, today's the last day to vote. And in fact, or to register to vote. And in fact, you have 1 hour and 5 minutes. I think it's till 4 p.m. Eastern. Actually, you know what? You might only have 5 minutes to right now to go to govotekentucky.com. If you haven't done it and you're still listening to me, disconnect from Facebook right now. Get to govotekentucky.com. Down to 3 minutes, 4 minutes. You're running out of time. If we're going to save this country, folks, we are going to have to, show up on time. Hildegard Pyle says, oxymoron. McLean Lessenberry, so glad that you made it over to the comments. And McLean, we need to have you on as an actual guest. And if you got time this week, I think that would be just a great, great thing. McLean, by the way, as an organizer in Barron County, which is Glasgow, if you sign up for her to get her alerts by text, she is relentless. She does not take no for an answer. You will be there. You will show up on time. You will buy a table and bring your friends. And she's just something. So anyway, just one of the best parts of doing this job is meeting people. Anyway, back to, should we leave the United States if President Trump wins again? Because at this point, for President Trump to win, it's going to mean things like Texas goes for Trump because they shut down enough places. They were able to shut down enough voting. And as you know, in Texas, the governor has made sure that there's only one drop-off box in each county. Counties in Texas are big. They're really big. Take you a day sometimes to drive out. Anyway, if they're able to muddy the waters enough that President Trump is able to win, or if by some other shenanigans, fooling around, delaying the approval of the vote or the counting of the electors, that would throw it into the House of Representatives, and potentially we'd wind up with a situation where the House, each state in the House gets one vote, and there are more Republican states in the House, although there are more representatives that are Democratic. So Democrats have the majority of representatives in the House, but they don't have the majority of states in the House. So that would make President Trump get a second term. If he's able to push this into the Supreme Court after getting his judge nominated, he will have appointed 3 of the 9 judges. So these are horrific possibilities right now that we are facing. So anyway, if this horrible thing happens, should you leave the United States? Now, I've been fortunate enough to travel at some other places around the world, and what I've found is, at least the places I've visited, people are very, very similar. There are some completely foreign cultures I have not visited. I have not been to the Middle East. I have not been to China. I've not been to Japan. I've not been to Africa. But I've been to Europe. I've been to South America. I've been to Canada. And so I understand that there are options for those that can manage to do it. Bear in mind, you're going to have to wait till after COVID to leave, because nobody wants us at this point because we're doing so poorly. Anyway, where would you go? Where would you go? I'm just curious if any of you would be willing to share with me, if money were no object, where would you leave? Where would you go to? Now, I'm going to tell you, my inclination is that even if President Trump wins, the problems that we are facing as Americans, the things we are facing, we're going to run out of options here, that even President Trump will have to be in favor of things like Medicare for All. In fact, he could come out of his difficulties with COVID and realize, oh my goodness, he might turn into, the Grinch that, remember the story of the Grinch? That after being such a horrible person all his life, or a horrible Grinch all his life, once his heart is touched, it actually grows in size to 3 times the size. So President Grinch Trump might experience personal growth, and his heart might increase, to 3 times in size. And in that case, he might say, wow, Medicare for All. And can you imagine if he did that 2-3 weeks before the election? What would that do? What would that do to the election? Anyway, it looks like some of the problems we are facing we're running out of options to please the super large corporations. We've been doing all of that. Now, Pam, my wife, is there saying he hasn't learned anything. He's tweeting to the American people not to be afraid of the virus. Very nice, President Trump, being that you had a phalanx of doctors, an entire hospital dedicated to keeping you alive. Hildegard Pyle says, you do believe in fairy tales. Yeah, I think that's one of my weaknesses. I think I'm just a little bit naive, perhaps. I do believe in the basic goodness of people, and somewhere inside there I believe there's the potential for goodness, but I ain't holding my breath. Anyway, so where would you go? Where would you go? Now, in this article, they talk about people that are in communities that experience racism or discrimination. So, for example, if you're a person of color, if you're black, they tell the story of someone who got out before COVID and actually got out before Trump and moved to Paris. And apparently there's a big community of American expats that are black, and in the creative arts, performers, all kinds of them. So there's a big community of American expats that are black in France, in Paris. And that makes sense, because I think it's going to be a long time before America really comes to terms with racism. I think it's going to take a generation or two moving on to the great beyond. I think that the younger generations are further towards eliminating racism, but folks, once they've become pretty set in their ways, it's difficult for them to change. They have to want to change, I guess is the old joke. in California. So I think there are places in the world that you could go if you're one of those populations that feels, mistreated here in the United States. But the realities are, not a lot of nations want us, and they do the same things to people coming across the border that we do. We ask you to bring money. You've got to get in line. It may take you years to get approved to get in the United States. That happens elsewhere as well. And then comes the issue of global climate change, because we've done so much damage to our environment. What possibility do we have? Where on the earth can you escape? And I actually started looking at maps. There's one teeny tiny spot somewhere in Africa that might not get completely overrun with climate change damage. But the rest of the world was basically colored red. So there is no place to run away. I guess I'm coming down on the side of stay in the United States, become part of the fight. I want to encourage you again to understand that if you get involved, it makes a difference. Here are some ways you can get involved, okay? It takes a little bit of work. Find 3 friends. 3 friends maybe that you haven't talked to for a while. Make sure they're going to vote. Suggest that they each find 3 friends and make sure they're going to vote. That's a great way to get involved, is help other people understand that it's important to vote. You can help people get to the polls. You can help them fill out. You're not allowed to help them fill out their ballot, but you can kind of make sure they get the ballot. If they're doing an absentee ballot, that they get it mailed in. You can join your local party. And what you're going to find, what we find in the 2nd District, we have 21 counties, so 21 county parties. And some of them are attended rather well, and some of them are not. There's not a lot of people. Either they're overrun with Republicans in that county. Well, get involved. What you're going to find is a friend, or 2, or 10, or 20. You'll find friends, and you'll add to them just by you showing up. Next thing is you can get involved in activities like doing phone banking. And by the way, we're doing phone banking for my campaign tomorrow night again. Anybody who wants to do it, please send me a message. You can also send an email to, let's see, I'm going to put the first, hankforkentucky.com. I'm at hankforkentucky.com. If you would like to be part of phone banking tomorrow, I think we start at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern. But anyway, it's only for a couple of hours. And it's tremendous fun. It's tremendous fun talking to people. The next thing, get involved with a campaign. Become part of a campaign. Maybe even consider running for office. And the easiest way of all to get involved, and I'm asking folks for help all the time, this is one of the hardest things to do as a candidate, is to ask people for financial support. The easiest way to help is to write a check. If you write a check for $50, that makes a difference in a campaign, and it probably didn't take you very, very long to acquire that $50, and took you virtually no effort to write a check and send it. That's the easiest way to help. Well, okay, Hildegard, you should already be signed up. Tomorrow, I hope we have Dr. Greg, but I'm not sure.
Greg Adams, good Dr. Adams, ask Dr. Greg.
I hope we have him tomorrow, but he might be Thursday. We are also going to have the return of Larry Swartz and Mike Tederick. They haven't sent me their picture yet, but these guys kvetch and complain and argue like nobody's business, and they're tremendous fun, and they're good friends. Cindy Franklin says, my college sophomore, responding to Cindy, Barbara Ticci. By the way, Barbara Ticci contributes more often than anyone in my campaign. Every few weeks, Barbara sends a Venmo. I mean, how great is that? That's just kind of mind-blowing to me. And Barbara, I really appreciate it. Anyway, it says, Barbara says, my college sophomore granddaughter is ready to absentee vote for Biden. Gina McKee, I'll get on that. Yes, get on Larry to get the picture. We need the picture of him. And I've got a secret evil plan for Larry and Mike to execute later this week. Anyway, all right. Thank you all for being here. Looks like we had a really good crowd. Bring some friends next time. Share these things. Send me $5. The work is going to continue for quite some time. When we get rid of President Trump, that's someone said he is not the problem. He's not the rot. He's the smell. We have a lot of rot in our system, and we need to get people that aren't beholden to huge corporations. As you know, I do not take corporate contributions. By the way, big news. Sunrise Movement, I just got an email. Sunrise Movement endorsed me, and I think tomorrow I'll get this together. I have to take the no fossil fuel pledge, but there's a bit of a rigmarole to do it. I've got to print something up and sign it in public and show it on social media, so maybe we'll do that tomorrow. Thank you all for being here. It's always great to see you. Let's see if we've still got any view out on the lake. Look how beautiful that is. Don't you want to be there? Don't you want to have a look? Well, anyway, thank you all so much. I will see you tomorrow. I'll let you know what's going on. I appreciate all your help. Remember, just because you're getting angry, don't be a damn fool. Use it to power up your determination and your courage. We got a lot of work to do. And here it comes. See you all tomorrow. Thanks so much.